My wildcard is active ahead of matchday 6 and my team is locked in. So I'm going to reveal exactly the 15 players that are going to be featuring in my semi-final team. As always, make sure to drop a like on this video and of course, smash that subscribe button for daily Euro and FPL content. Enough waffling, let's get into today's video. So first off, a quick one. If you've checked out my previous videos, you will know that I think using the wildcard in matchday 6, the semi-finals, is the best thing to do. Please do check out the previous videos if you haven't already, but realistically, because of the wildcard in the semi-finals, we can select from 15 players. Because the final is only one day, you only pick an 11 that actually plays, so you don't fully utilize the wildcard. And for my team, I had 5 players eliminated, so the wildcard was a no-brainer. But when it comes to building the wildcard, I did find that there were 2 options that you could go for in terms of structuring your team. Now, we all know the teams that are actually in the final, and of course, we will get the team news before the deadline of 8 PM UK time, so keep an eye out for maybe some of those differentials in the game, like Olmo in particular. But 2 ways that you can build your draft. Option 1 is that you invest in all 4 teams equally to reduce the risk in the final and you get coverage in both days. So what I mean by that is you maybe have 4 or 5 Spanish players, maybe 3 or 4 French players, and the same principle for the Netherlands versus England game. I like this strategy because regardless of the worst case scenario, where maybe take my team for example later on in the video, the worst case scenario would be France and Netherlands progressing. I would be left with 6 players for the final. However, we get 5 free transfers in the final, meaning I can get myself to a starting 11 regardless of which teams do progress in the competition. And I do like option 1 because it means you do have at least some investment in day 2. If we take option 2, for example, this is where you're hedging the fact that Spain or France, regardless of which one goes through, are likely going to be favourites in the final. And I hate saying that considering I am an England fan, but I do like this strategy because what you do is you have 6 Spanish players, 6 French players, and then of course the other 3 will be made up of either English or Netherlands players. I like this because regardless in the final, you're going to have 6 players from the respective favourites in the final. And then you can use your additional free transfers to bulk up your team to have a starting 11, which will represent the other team in the final. I like this because, as I said, you can get yourself the best players from those nations. The problem, you're not spreading yourself over the coming 2 days. And that could be an issue, of course, if the Netherlands-England game proves to be a 0-0 and you don't have any England or Netherlands coverage in defence. So there are definitely pros and cons for option 2. The one pro that I will say is you can guarantee yourself a goalkeeper in the final. So, for example, you could go for Simon at Spain and you could go for Magnan of France. Obviously, both teams play against one another. You are guaranteed to at least have a goalkeeper in the final. Whereas if you go for Simon of Spain and Pickford of England, if Spain and England get eliminated, you've lost both goalkeepers going into the final. So make sure you identify which option you want for your wildcard. For me, I've gone for the option 1 pick. Okay, so moving into the wildcard goalkeepers, and we are sticking with Spain's Simon and England's Pickford. As I discussed, there's definitely a risk going into the final that both of these get eliminated from the competition, and I don't have a goalkeeper, which isn't ideal. But being a biased England fan, I do think England will get to the final, so I'm hoping I will have at least one of those in my final team. And regardless, I do think that there are going to be cagey affairs in both semi-finals. So for that reason, I think whichever goalkeeper combination you go for, I think they're pretty equal. And you'll see with the rest of my team that I do have investment in some French defenders, which I do think is essential for your teams. But realistically for the goalkeepers, I don't think you need to stress about it too much. I've gone for Simon and Pickford. Moving into the defenders, and as I mentioned with option 1, we're looking to spread ourselves across all teams, and I have done that with my selections here. So we have got the double French defence in Jules Koundé and William Saliba. I think Theo Hernandez is also a brilliant pick, and to be honest with you, the way France are playing, you could definitely go for triple up in defence if you want to, but I've gone for these 2. I think Koundé is just a no-brainer at 5 million, and Saliba I just slightly prefer over Theo Hernandez because ball recoveries are just the way to score points in this game right now, and Saliba is one of the best of them in that French team alongside Jules Koundé. Gone for Cucurella alongside Simon in goal, so I've got the double Spanish defence. With the injuries to Spain, the suspensions to Spain with Carvajal and Le Monde, I'm a little bit concerned about a Spanish clean sheet against France, but if they do progress to the final, at least I do have 2 Spanish defenders in my team in the shape of Cucurella and the goalkeeper Simon, so I don't mind that, and of course Cucurella is fantastic for ball recoveries. The final 2 defenders are obviously going to feature in day 2. We got De Vrij of Netherlands. I believe I've completely butchered that, so I do apologise. And we've also got Gay, who I do expect to return for England. But if you ever worry that he might be bringing someone like a John Stones, but he isn't as good on ball recoveries, or even somebody like a Kyle Walker, I'm slightly concerned about the minutes of Luke Shaw, so I wouldn't necessarily go there. So those are the defenders, and as I mentioned, right now, regardless of who progresses, at least we have some sort of investment in each respective team. But of course, right now, you do have to slightly back one team, and on day 2, I am back in England, hence why I've only got one Netherlands defender. Moving into the midfielders, and I've gone boring. I can't believe I'm saying it, because I have been the guy who has tried to bring in the exciting midfielders, but look, Kante and Rodri are in the team. Look, I think this is going to be a tight affair. And when I look at Spain, I think there are some fantastic attacking options like Olmo, who of course we're going to know whether he starts or not before the deadline. But I just don't think there can be many goals. And for that reason, I think Rodri, one of those clutch players, I wouldn't be surprised if he was to crop up with one of those edge-of-the-box finishes. And importantly, ball recoveries, I think he is going to be very, very important to Spain if they are going to get a victory here. And that's why I do think maybe going for Rodri is better in this team over the course of the entire match, especially if it does go to extra time. And the same principle for Kante. I hate owning defensive mids, but Kante is one of those who's going to play most of the game and extra time, and brilliant for ball recoveries. He isn't going to score, let's be real. So I've lent towards that. And again, I think it's more difficult for Spanish than French, because the French have no midfielders that we really want to go for that are offensive options. Might be blind faith, but I've gone for double England midfield. Let's just pray they deliver. It's Bellingham and Saka. I think that's probably the best combination right now. I think they both play full 90 and extra time, which inevitably it will go into, as we know, England. Finally, Nico Williams. This could easily be Olmo, but I'm looking more forward in terms of extra time and also potential final. I think Nico Williams is the one that I feel a bit more inclined to go towards. So that is going to be the midfield. As I said, I do think defensive mids with ball recoverers might actually be the play in this semi-final. Finally, the forwards, and I haven't got Harry Kane. I can't believe I'm saying it, but I've not got Harry Kane in this draft. I've just not seen anything good from him. I don't think England are necessarily finding him in the attacking positions. So that reason, he's not in the team. I may change my mind last minute and I will update you, but at the time of recording, I prefer the double England midfield. So we have currently got Gakpo on the bench for day 2. Again, I'm just hedging myself in case Netherlands do progress to the final. But as you can tell, my team, I think England will win that game. But let's just say I might be a little bit more biased in that situation. Lamine Yamal, it's just impossible for me to ignore him right now. He, of course, is one of the players of the tournament right now. Not scoring goals, but being such a creative force in that Spanish team. And Kylian Mbappe, I know he has been poor this tournament, but with the suspension of Carvajal, I do think Mbappe coming into this team, I think he could have real joy down that flank against a Spain team who I haven't been necessarily incredibly impressed with defensively. And that is why he's picked up the captaincy option as well for my team. And I'm pretty locked in on him. Of course, I've got day 2 options if he doesn't deliver. So that's going to be the wildcard team. As I mentioned, I've gone for the option 1 where I've spread myself across. And just to give you an example with this team, if, for example, the worst case scenario of France and Netherlands do get to the final, and I don't mean that in terms of the actual nations, I mean that as in from a fantasy perspective, I still love the French and Netherlands people. In that scenario there, I'd only have 6 players going to the final. I'd have Koundé, Saliba, 7. Saliba, Koundé, Kante and Mbappe. And I would obviously have De Vrij and Gakpo. So 7 players going to the final. The best case scenario would be Spain and England progressing because, of course, I would have 9. I would have Pickford, Guehi, Saka and Bellingham from England. And then I would also have from the Spanish team, Yamal, Nico Williams, Rodri, Cucurella and Simon. So I'd have 9 players progressing. And with 5 free transfers, that is more than enough to put out a starting 11. So I think this hedges myself perfectly for the final. I am hoping that it will obviously come up clutch with those defensive midfielders. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. Yes, guys, okay, that's going to wrap up my Matchday 6 team selection. I'm pretty much locked in. But of course, if you want to stay up to date with any potential last minute changes, make sure you are subscribed to the channel, as I will update you in the community section with a screenshot of my final team. And of course, with FPL dropping, there is no better time to be subscribed to the channel. So make sure you are already. Any last minute questions, put them in the comment section, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day. Cheers.